Hi all, Everyone here with review number 70, Deities and Demigods for the D20 system. And this one is actually quite a bit different from the Deities and Demigods and Legend and Lore from 1st edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. This reminds me more of Theros, and that's coming soon for 5th edition as a printed hardback. Looking forward to that. I don't really have a big complaint about this. Or high praise. I mean, there are some new classes in here. That's something. The key points, though, are there are many campaign and adventure ideas between pages 10 to 18 and then 22 to 24. And, you know, everything about this book is centered around some sort of religious aspect. If religion is not for you or your campaign setting or you have your own beliefs, obviously you're not probably going to pick this up or whatever. But there's a lot of mythology in this as well, and maybe you are creating a cult that has their own belief system. Maybe you have a puzzle related to that belief system, and you could utilize that and then have players figure out how the cult thinks about the cosmology of the world, because they don't necessarily know. And that's how the puzzle is solved. I think the Da Vinci Code. Okay, so, and then you have a little section on why gods rarely die on 19. Building a pantheon of your own on 19 to 20. Cosmology and divine realms on 20 to 24. There's an example pantheon on 21. Let me show you that. 21. And I got this book used, so it is a little beaten up. I found one page tear on it. I've had this for a while, but I bought it with a bunch of other books, so let's get better. And so it shows where the deity's relation is to his worshippers or her worshippers. The Great Wheel on 23, and you'll see more about that in the Manual of the Planes, which I will hopefully get around to. Yes, there are several versions of the Manual of the Planes. Mahaha. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons and the D20. Super excited about that. Ranks of Divine Power on 25. So basically, divinity works in ranks according to the rules, but divinity is separate from the pantheons or whatever, or whether you're a dualist religion or theist, monotheist. It's very confusing. Divine characters on 26 to 30. Deity portfolio on 30 and 31. Okay, so basically, what sort of aspects make up your deity's level of concern? Is it conflict, conquest, swiftness, tactics, forests, beaches, deserts, mining, metal, husbandry, birth, that sort of thing? And then, let's see. And then you have salient divine abilities on 32 to 49. So salient divine abilities are special abilities that are only available to people with ranks of divine power. This book also reminds me of Mythic Adventures for the Pathfinder campaign setting. I should really cover that one. Yes. So, Oh yes, feats on 49 to 52. Role-playing a deity on 52 to 56. The D&D cosmology on 57 and 58. So, like, how the planes connect to the rest of the world, but this doesn't go into it as deeply as the Manual of the Planes. The Deity Pantheon on 58 to 98. And I might have to break this up a little bit. Every deity has a full stat block. And then you have a Shrine of Corleon, Laerthian. I don't use these deities in my... Yeah, I mean, these are old holdovers, but there's a shrine example. And the page you can find that on is 64. There's a Temple of Hieronymus on 73. That's just an example. I don't know if you want them to be all the same, or if you want them to be required to be slightly different from one another, or if they all have to have some similar pattern. And then here's another temple example. Alright. Yeah, there's just a lot of examples. And the Temple of Cord. Ted Cord of Cord Industries. You know, the original Blue Beetle. No. Yeah, so... Okay, here's another temple example. And every deity has the reason for the temple layout. Okay. My notes were not fully expansive on this one. Just there's a lot in this book, and I don't want this to run more than 15 minutes. So the Olympic Pantheon starts on 99 through 134. And the Olympian Temple is on 103. The Olympian Cosmology is on 101. Alright. There is some suggestive material, but not outright nudity in this one. Like obvious, barely clothed women. Especially in the Greek one, like many deities are not shown with a reverence for much clothing. Alright, yeah, pages 125 and 126 have a little tear, so I was trying to be careful through that portion. I know this is taking a bit longer than normal, but there's just little portions throughout some of these that have references that I didn't write down. Okay, so on 134 you have some Olympian style monsters, from the basilisk to the dread unicorn. No, it's just unicorn. I just added the dread because I thought it sounded awesome. Then you have the Ferrite Pantheon on 135 to 162. And then you have the Ferrite Pantheon, cosmology right there. And that's on 137. Then you have the temple example right here. Alright, and that's on 138. Now, there are some hidden rules here for the pharaonic one. And once again, there's some mild suggestive material in this book. And it's interesting because I'm not sure how people would feel about it today from these cultures. And, you know, especially when they're giving cleric spells per day or whatever. But that is something I like, because some deities want to have more control over what their clerics do than others. So on page 158, you have new equipment in the Pharaonic Pantheon, and one's the Kopesh, and the other is the Tiger Claws. Then you have Pharaonic Monsters on 161, and they, again, stem from the Basilisk to various animals and zombies. And then you have the Pyramid, and that is on 162. And then you have the Asgardian Pantheon. One second. And the Asgardian Pantheon uh, 163 to 202. And you have the Asgardian Cosmology on 165. There's that with the Rainbow Bridge and everything. And then after that, we have the Asgardian Temple on 166. Okay, so flipping through, there's more stuff in here, and there are things hidden throughout. That is one thing I would like to point out. This doesn't have an index at the back of it. It really should have. I guess that's my big complaint, and that's why it's harder to find stuff, which is another reason why I make videos calling out the page numbers. So this is what the D&D interpretation of hell looked like for the D20 system. I mean, there are just so many gods and goddesses throughout this book. If you can't build a pantheon after reading this, and I mean, you probably don't have an interest in it. Like, for my personal campaign, I'm not going to be using much of this. Then you have Asgardian Monsters on 199, and there's 3 variants of Einherjar. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm probably doing it wrong. I believe they say it in Skyrim. You have a dwarf, elf, and human. The only, I guess those might have existed, because dwarves existed, but they were quite different from D&D dwarves. Yeah, I mean, do some research on this stuff. It's really cool. And then you have the Berserk Class. It's a prestige class on 201 to 202. Asgardian Monsters, from the dire ape to the zombie and other animals, and that is on 203. And then you have a prestige class, Justicar of Tia, on 205 and 206. And then you have another class, it's the prestige class, Soldier of Light, from 208 to 209. You have the appendixes from 213 all the way to the end of the book at 223. So none of this book has open game content, but, and that's kind of another problem for me, because they're trying to sell you on the open game license for the D20 system, and I'm not really sure when that's set into place, because this is pre 3.5, and it definitely has its own feel to it. I think they got a lot more open with the rule set after the 3.5 rule set, and to some good and some bad. But I feel a lot of their earlier content was far more focused, and they had their own visions. But ultimately, I'm at the 16-minute mark, guys. Please tell me what you thought. There is a lot of context for this book. There is a lot of content for the book as well. Alright, Carbon 1 out. Thank you.